Hey everyone, before I dive into this wild story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of my updates. Your support means the world, and I can't wait to share this journey with you. It all started with a simple email notification on a Tuesday morning. My phone buzzed, and I saw a message from a social media platform I hadn't used in months. Your password has been changed, it read. I froze, my coffee cup halfway to my lips. I hadn't logged in, so who did? Confusion hit me hard as I tried to log in, only to be locked out. My heart raced. Something was wrong. I clicked forgot password, but the recovery email was no longer mine. Panic crept in as I realized someone had taken control. I checked my other accounts, and my stomach dropped. My email, my cloud storage, even my bank app showed unusual activity. I felt exposed, like my entire life was laid bare. Whoever had my password was rummaging through my digital world. I tried to stay calm, but my hands shook as I called customer support. Hours on hold only led to automated responses. By evening, I was frantic, unsure of where to turn. My life, once so secure, felt like it was unraveling. The next day, things got worse. My friends started texting me, confused about strange messages from my accounts. Someone was posting cryptic updates on my social media, things I'd never say. My professional profile, carefully curated over years, was now spewing nonsense. Clients reached out, questioning my credibility. I tried to explain, but their trust was already shaken. My inbox was flooded with password reset alerts from sites I barely remembered signing up for. The hacker was relentless, digging deeper into my life. I felt violated, like a stranger was living in my skin. I spent hours trying to secure my accounts, but the damage was spreading. My reputation, my career, it was all at stake. I couldn't sleep, haunted by the thought of who was behind this. Every notification made my heart skip. I was losing control, and I didn't know how to stop it. By day 3, the hacker had escalated their attack. My email was sending spam to everyone in my contacts. Colleagues, family, even old acquaintances received bizarre messages. Some were harmless, but others were malicious, accusing people of things they'd never done. I was mortified, apologizing endlessly, but the responses were cold. People thought I was unhinged. My social media was now posting offensive content, and followers were dropping like flies. I tried reporting the issue to the platforms, but their responses were slow. I felt powerless, like I was screaming into a void. My professional network was crumbling, and I could see years of hard work slipping away. I started researching data breaches, wondering how this happened. Was it a weak password? A phishing scam? I couldn't pinpoint the moment my life was hijacked. I decided to take action, starting with my bank. Suspicious transactions were popping up, small at first, then larger. I spent hours on the phone, freezing accounts and disputing charges. The bank was sympathetic but slow, and every delay felt like a betrayal. I changed every password I could think of, using complex combinations this time. But the hacker was always a step ahead, already in systems I hadn't secured. I felt like I was chasing a ghost. My stress levels were through the roof, and I wasn't eating or sleeping. Friends suggested hiring a cybersecurity expert, but I couldn't afford one. I was fighting a war I didn't understand, and I was losing. The thought of giving up crossed my mind, but I couldn't let this ruin me. On day 5, I discovered the hacker had accessed my cloud storage. Personal photos, work documents, even my journal, everything was exposed. I felt sick imagining someone sifting through my private memories. Some files were deleted, others shared online. My most intimate moments were now public, and I couldn't stop it. I contacted the cloud provider, but their support was a maze of forms and wait times. My reputation was in tatters. Colleagues stopped responding to my emails. I was being ghosted by my own network. I started documenting everything, taking screenshots of every suspicious activity. Maybe I could build a case, prove this wasn't me. But the internet moves fast, and the damage was already done. I felt like I was drowning in my own life. A week in, I found a forum where victims of hacking shared their stories. Reading their experiences gave me a glimmer of hope. I wasn't alone, but their warnings were grim. Recovery could take months. I learned about two-factor authentication and wished I'd set it up sooner. I spent hours enabling it on every account I could still access. The hacker was still active, though, posting defamatory content under my name. My LinkedIn profile was now a mockery, filled with fake job titles and rants. Clients I'd worked with for years were cutting ties. I felt like I was watching my life burn down. I started researching password managers, vowing to never be this vulnerable again. But the immediate threat was still there, taunting me with every new notification. I reached out to a friend who worked in IT, desperate for help. She walked me through basic cybersecurity steps I'd never considered. We scanned my devices for malware, finding a keylogger that had been tracking my every keystroke. My blood ran cold. How long had this been on my laptop? We wiped my devices and reinstalled everything, but the damage was done. The hacker had enough of my data to keep going. My friend suggested contacting the police, but they dismissed it as a digital issue. I felt abandoned by the system. My social media accounts were now suspended, a small relief, but the hacker had moved to other platforms. I was fighting a losing battle, and my was breaking. How could one stolen password cause so much chaos? By the second week, I was emotionally drained. My family was supportive, but I could see their worry. They didn't understand the digital world, and I struggled to explain. My inbox was still flooded with complaints about messages I didn't send. I hired a lawyer to help with the defamation, but legal processes were slow. My career was on hold, and my savings were dwindling. I started a blog to document my experience, hoping to warn others. Writing was therapeutic, but the comments were brutal. People blamed me for being careless. I questioned myself too. Was this my fault? Should I have been more careful? The guilt was overwhelming, but I kept fighting. I couldn't let this define me. I finally got a break when one platform restored my account. It felt like a small victory, but the hacker had already moved on. They'd created fake profiles using my name and photos, spreading lies across forums. My Google search results were now a nightmare, filled with slander. I contacted every site I could, begging them to remove the content. Some complied, but others ignored me. I felt like I was begging for my identity back. My mental health was crumbling. I was paranoid about every click, every email. I stopped using social media altogether, retreating from the world I once loved. The hacker had taken more than my password, they'd taken my confidence. I was a shadow of myself, but I wasn't giving up. I started working with a cybersecurity volunteer group I found online. They helped me trace some of the hacker's activity, though it led to dead ends. The hacker was using VPNs, masking their location. Still, their guidance gave me tools to secure my digital life. I learned about encryption, VPNs, and phishing scams. Knowledge was empowering, but it couldn't undo the past. My reputation was still in ruins, and I was running out of energy. I kept my blog updated, sharing every step of my recovery. A few readers reached out with similar stories, and their support kept me going. I wasn't alone anymore, but the fight was far from over. I vowed to rebuild, no matter how long it took. The third week brought a new low. My bank informed me of a large unauthorized transfer. My savings, already strained, took a massive hit. I spent days filing claims, my anxiety at an all-time high. The hacker had used my details to impersonate me perfectly. I felt like I was living someone else's nightmare. My lawyer suggested pursuing a cybercrime report, but the process was daunting. I gathered every piece of evidence, screenshots, emails, logs. It was exhausting, but I had to try. My blog was gaining traction, and some readers offered tips on recovery. Their kindness was a lifeline in the chaos. I started to feel a spark of hope, but the weight of my ruined reputation lingered. I missed my old life, the one before the password was stolen. I discovered the hacker had accessed my work email, sending fake invoices to clients. Some had paid before realizing the scam. My company was furious, and I was put on leave pending an investigation. I felt betrayed by the system I'd worked so hard for. My colleagues were distant, unsure if I was to blame. I spent hours explaining, but trust was broken. The hacker's reach seemed endless, touching every part of my life. I started therapy to cope with the stress, something I'd never considered before. It helped, but the sessions were expensive. I was burning through money and energy, with no end in sight. My blog became my outlet, a place to vent and connect. I wasn't ready to give up, but I was so tired. A month in, I got a lead from the cybersecurity group. They traced some activity to a data breach from a site I'd used years ago. My password, reused across platforms, was likely stolen then. I cursed myself for not being more careful. Armed with this knowledge, I tightened security on every account. Two-factor authentication became my new best friend. But the hacker was still out there, using my stolen data to wreak havoc. My social media was a war zone of fake accounts and lies. I contacted influencers I knew, asking them to spread the word that I'd been hacked. Some helped, but others didn't want to get involved. I felt alone again, but I kept pushing. My blog was now my voice, and I wasn't going to be silenced. The legal process started moving, albeit slowly. My lawyer filed complaints with federal agencies, citing identity theft. The paperwork was overwhelming, but I was meticulous. I wanted justice, or at least some closure. My bank refunded some of the stolen money, a small win. But my reputation was still in tatters, and job offers had dried up. I started freelancing to make ends meet, but clients were hesitant. The hackers' fake profiles kept popping up, and I was constantly playing whack-a-mole. My therapy sessions helped me stay grounded, but the stress was relentless. I leaned on my blog community, who shared their own horror stories. Their strength inspired me to keep fighting. I was determined to reclaim my life. I began educating myself on cybersecurity, devouring articles and tutorials. Knowledge was my weapon against the chaos. I learned how to spot phishing emails and secure my devices. My friend in IT helped me set up a secure home network. I felt a bit more in control, but the hackers' shadow loomed. They'd moved to darker corners of the internet, spreading my data on forums. I hired a service to monitor the dark web, a cost I could barely afford. My blog was now getting attention from cybersecurity experts, who offered free advice. I was grateful but overwhelmed by the technical jargon. Slowly, I was rebuilding my digital defenses. My reputation, though, was still a work in progress. I wasn't giving up, but the road was long. By the 5th week, I had regained control of most of my accounts. It felt like a miracle, but the damage was done. My Google search results were still a mess, filled with lies and fake profiles. I worked with a reputation management service, another expense I hadn't planned for. They helped scrub some of the slander, but it was slow. My blog was now a platform for awareness, and I started sharing tips on staying safe online. Readers thanked me, saying I'd helped them avoid similar fates. It gave me purpose, but I missed my old life. My career was still on hold, and I was living paycheck to paycheck. The hacker was quieter now, but I knew they weren't gone. I stayed vigilant, checking every account daily. I was surviving, but barely. My lawyer got a breakthrough. One of the fake profiles was traced to a server overseas. It wasn't enough to catch the hacker, but it was progress. I felt a spark of hope, like justice might be possible. My bank fully refunded the stolen funds, easing some financial stress. But my professional network was still fractured, and trust was hard to rebuild. I started reaching out to old clients, explaining the hack. Some were sympathetic, but others had moved on. My blog was now my main outlet, and I poured my heart into it. I was invited to speak at a small cybersecurity webinar, a chance to share my story. It was terrifying but empowering. I was starting to find my voice again. The hacker hadn't won yet. I began collaborating with other hacking victims, forming a support network. We shared resources, tips, and emotional support. It was a lifeline, reminding me I wasn't alone. My blog was gaining followers, and I felt a responsibility to keep going. I started a petition for better cybersecurity laws, hoping to make a difference. The legal process was still crawling, but I was patient. My therapy sessions were helping me process the trauma, though I still had nightmares. My devices were now Fort Knox, with every security measure in place. The hacker's activity had slowed, but I wasn't complacent. I checked my accounts obsessively, fearing another attack. My reputation was slowly improving, but it was fragile. I was rebuilding, one step at a time. 6 weeks in, I got a call from a journalist interested in my story. They wanted to feature my blog in a piece about cybercrime. I was nervous but agreed. It was a chance to reach more people. The article brought a flood of new readers to my blog, and I felt validated. My webinar talk was a success, and I was invited to speak at another event. I was finding a new purpose in advocacy, though my old career was still out of reach. My lawyer warned that catching the hacker was unlikely, but I didn't care as much anymore. I was focused on rebuilding my life. My blog was now a community, and I cherished their support. The hacker had taken so much, but I was taking back control. I was stronger than I'd ever been. 2 months after the hack, I was a different person. I'd learned so much about cybersecurity, I felt like an expert. My blog was thriving, and I was mentoring others through their own recoveries. My reputation was still healing, but I was getting job inquiries again. The journalist's article had opened doors, and I was invited to write a guest post for a tech site. It felt like a fresh start, though the scars lingered. My lawyer was still pursuing the case, but I was less invested in the outcome. I'd found strength in my community and my voice. The hacker was a ghost now. Their attacks faded. I checked my accounts less obsessively, trusting my new security measures. I was reclaiming my life, piece by piece. My advocacy work was gaining traction. I was invited to speak at a national cybersecurity conference, a huge honor. My blog had become a resource for victims, and I was proud of its impact. I started a YouTube channel to share video tutorials on staying safe online. The first video was nerve-wracking, but the response was overwhelming. People were listening, and I felt like I was making a difference. My career was still on shaky ground, but I was building a new path. My financial situation was stabilizing, thanks to freelance work. The hacker hadn't posted in weeks, and I dared to hope they'd moved on. My therapy helped me process the trauma, and I was sleeping better. I was stronger, but still cautious. I began working with a non-profit focused on cybercrime awareness. They offered me a part-time role, a lifeline for my career. My blog was now a recognized platform, and I was approached by a publisher about a book deal. The idea of telling my story in depth was daunting but exciting. My reputation was slowly being restored, though some clients never returned. I was okay with that. I was building something new. My support network of victims was now a tight-knit community, and we were planning a virtual summit. The hacker was a distant memory, though I never let my guard down. My devices were secure, and I taught others to do the same. I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor. 3 months in, I felt like I'd turned a corner. My YouTube channel was growing, and my blog was a go-to resource for cybersecurity tips. The conference talk was a success, and I was invited to more events. My freelance work was steady, and the non-profit role gave me purpose. My lawyer closed the case, unable to catch the hacker, but I was at peace. I'd rebuilt my life stronger than before. My Google search results were cleaner, thanks to the reputation management service. My community of supporters was my rock, and I leaned on them. The hacker had taken so much, but I'd gained something too: resilience. I was proud of how far I'd come. The nightmare was fading, but I'd never forget. I started writing my book, pouring my heart into every chapter. It was therapeutic, a way to process the trauma and help others. My blog and YouTube channel were now my full-time focus, and I was making a living from them. My reputation was nearly restored, and I was getting job offers again. I turned some down, focused on my advocacy work. The nonprofit was expanding, and I was leading their outreach efforts. My support network was planning our virtual summit, and I was excited to lead it. The hacker was gone, and I felt free. My security habits were second nature now, and I taught others to stay vigilant. I was living proof that you could rebuild after a hack. My book deal was finalized, and I was thrilled. It felt like a culmination of everything I'd been through. My blog and YouTube channel were thriving, with thousands of followers. I was invited to speak at international conferences, sharing my story globally. My career was no longer what it was better. The nonprofit role was fulfilling, and I was making a real impact. My reputation was stronger than ever, built on authenticity and resilience. My support network was like family, and our summit was a huge success. The hacker was a distant memory, but their impact shaped me. I was grateful for the strength I'd found. My life was mine again, and I was thriving. 4 months after the hack, I was a new woman. My book was in progress, and I was loving the process. My YouTube channel was monetized, and my blog was a trusted resource. I was mentoring new victims, helping them navigate their recoveries. My nonprofit work was expanding, and I was leading a national campaign. My reputation was fully restored, and I was proud of my journey. My support network was stronger than ever, and we were planning more initiatives. The hacker had faded into irrelevance, and I was at peace. My security measures were ironclad, and I taught others to do the same. I'd turned pain into purpose, and I was unstoppable. I launched a podcast to complement my blog and YouTube channel. It was a hit, with listeners sharing their own stories. My book was nearing completion, and early feedback was positive. My conference talks were now in high demand, and I was traveling regularly. My nonprofit role was my passion, and I was making a difference. My reputation was stronger than ever, built on resilience and advocacy. My support network was a global community, and we were changing lives. The hacker was a footnote in my story, no longer defining me. My life was secure, and I was helping others achieve the same. I was living my purpose, and it felt incredible. 5 months in, I was thriving. My book was set for release, and pre-orders were strong. My YouTube channel and podcast were growing, and my blog was a leading voice in cybersecurity. I was a sought-after speaker, sharing my story worldwide. My nonprofit work was making waves, and I was leading policy changes. My reputation was unshakable, a testament to my strength. My support network was my family, and we were planning a global summit. The hacker was gone, and I was free. My life was secure, and I was helping others protect theirs. I'd turned a nightmare into a triumph, and I was proud. Looking back, I can't believe how far I've come. A stolen password turned my life upside down, but I rebuilt it stronger. My book is out, my channels are thriving, and my advocacy work is changing lives. I'm a leader in cybersecurity, and my reputation is my badge of honor. My support network is my strength, and we're making a difference together. The hacker thought they could break me, but they made me unstoppable. I'm secure, confident, and living my purpose. I share my story to inspire others. You can recover, you can rebuild. Stay vigilant, stay strong, and never give up. My life is mine again, and I'm never letting go. Thank you for listening to my story. If you haven't already, Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any updates. Your support keeps me going, and I'd love for you to join me on this journey to raise awareness and stay safe online.